Hi, and welcome back to Cooking with Cameron. If you didn't know, Game of Thrones is starting another season pretty soon. What other better dinner to have than a Game of Thrones themed one? I got 4 things to make. Y'all like venison? Venison stew, black bread, mulled wine with oranges and lemons, and a little bit of spices as well. The blueberry cream, the light, sweet dessert. So let's prepare. First thing we're going to make is we're going to have some black bread. So what you need is you need to get yourself a bowl, get yourself some honey, a little bit of yeast, and some dark beer. What you want to do is you want to take your yeast, put it in your bowl, and some dark beer, and start pouring that in. You want about 12 ounces of that. Take your honey, and you want 2 tablespoons of honey. Get that mixed in there. Let the yeast activate. Get yourself a large bowl. And you're going to want several different types of flour. You want 2 cups of white. You want 2 cups of rye. Dark rye if you can find it. And half a cup of wheat flour. Put all that in there. Get your whisk. Mix that through. And we're going to wait about 5 minutes for that yeast to activate in that bowl. And then we're going to slowly add it to this. And we're going to make ourselves some nice bread. You can see the beer, the honey, and the yeast have all started to mix together. What you can do, just take a spoon, mix it together just in case there's lumps. What I need to do now is add 1 egg beaten to the yeast and coarse sea salt or kosher salt. Just a shake, mix that up, let that sit for a few minutes. What we're going to do is I'm going to take this large bowl, I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to take the blueberries, get a small rack. So I'm going to pick out some of the ones that are too ripe, put those to the side. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to take these, I'm going to throw them in the freezer. I'm going to let those chill for a little while. I got a nice concoction. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly, very slowly, start adding flour to this. So I'm just working this right now. Right now it's like a thick pudding. I'm going to want that to be a nice thick dough. Shake some more in there. And you really got to work it. Make sure it doesn't get too stuck in your whisk. And this will make enough for 2 loaves. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to make it 1 normal loaf. And I'm also going to try and make one in the shape of a wolf, just like hot pie does. Hopefully, my first time making bread, I can mimic the shape of a wolf rather well. If not, then I really will be like hot pie because he couldn't make one either. And this is getting really thick, so soon I'm going to have to use something other than my whisk. Slowly, but surely, you mix all this dough together and you start having a congealed blob, which will be perfect to work with. Take the last little bit of flour, put that in there. I'm going to mix all this together until all the flour has been worked in. I'm going to take my flour. Normally you'd want to do this on a solid surface, not a stove. Nice floury hand marks on my brand new apron. I'm going to take your dough, make sure it gets all mixed together. It's getting to a thick enough paste to where I can work it with my hands without it sticking to me too much. I'm going to mix that with the flour, make sure I get as much of that flour in there as possible. And then toss that on there. I'm going to start working it. When you're kneading, what you want to look for is when your dough starts to give a bounce back. Make sure you use the palms of your hands and push it. If it's still too sticky and you have more flour left in your bowl, take that, push that in there as well. Use a fist. And as you're pushing, turn your wrists so that you're giving different amounts of pressure. So I'll take this bowl right here. I'm going to put it in there. Grab myself a towel. I'm going to cover it. I'm going to put that to the side. Let that start to rise. And I'll come back and check that in about an hour. While we're waiting for that bread dough to rise, we can start preparing the cream for dessert. So I have a cup of cream on the stove. I'm going to put that on medium-high heat. I'm going to add 2 egg whites. I'm going to let that boil a little bit. And once it starts boiling, I'm going to turn down the heat, let it simmer. And that'll be a nice, light, sweet dessert after a big, heavy meal I'm preparing. It boiled a little bit, and I've put it to simmer. Now it's time to add a little bit of honey. Now about 2 tablespoons worth. Take your whisk, make sure that honey gets mixed together. Find my teaspoon, add a teaspoon, add another teaspoon. I'm going to mix that. Note to the wise, if you're preparing something that involves a lot of mixing, don't do an hour exercise at a gym the night before, because my arms hurt. Now we got all this mixed. I'm going to take our bowl and strainer, turn off the stove. I'm going to take the cream, pour it into the strainer. That'll work out all the cooked egg bits. And then we'll just be left with a nice cream. If you have a wire strainer, that might work a little bit better. And you take this cream, put that in the fridge, and it'll thicken as it cools. That's all we can do for now. I did say we have to check on the bread. So we check on that. It has risen a little bit. And all you have to do right here is give it a little bit of punching and let that rise for another 2 hours or so. I seem to have a friend who wants to make it over the wall. I didn't know the White Walkers were here already. Now this is a Black Walker who decides to want to be in the video. That'll be all the cooking we can do for now. I'll come back in a couple hours, prepare the bread, and then prepare the stew. So let's cut to that. Welcome back. It's been a couple hours, and now it's time to start the stew. Here we have some lovely venison sausages and some bacon. So what we need to do first is we need to get a nice sharp knife, freshly sharpened. And we're going to take the bacon and we're going to cut it into little bits. Once we get it nice and cut, we're going to throw it in this skillet right here and get that cooking. And what's going to be great is we have all this savory meats. We're going to have a nice sweet mulled wine to drink with it, with oranges and lemons and a little bit of spices as well. Make sure the bacon is all on the center of the pan. Let that cook a little bit. You don't have to use sausages. You can find venison meat as well, or ground venison. All of them would work well in this and be absolutely delicious. The trick with any stew is make sure you have enough fluid. That way it doesn't cook too down. While this is cooking, I'll cut the vegetables. I have some carrots, some boiler onions. Now, what most people don't know is venison is actually a very lean meat. So that's why I'm throwing in bacon. Not only because bacon has more fat, but also because bacon has a nice flavor to it. Let's see if we can try and separate a little bit. You can already start to smell the bacon cooking. Well, you can't, but I can, and it smells amazing. My favorite part of cooking anything is bacon and onions. One of my favorite smells when cooking. And what we're going to do is, once this bacon is cooked, like I said, we're going to throw it in this pot, but we're going to keep the grease here, and that's going to be used to cook the sausages. So you can see all the grease that is being released from the bacon sitting all right here. That'll be really good. It'll get infused into the sausage. I hope you know that Game of Thrones is entering its 7th season. Otherwise, I don't know why you click on this video unless you just like watching people cook. But if you haven't watched Game of Thrones and you decided to watch this cooking video, I highly recommend it. Start season 1 and work your way all the way through. There's only 10 episodes a season so far, and you can get caught up relatively quickly. Also, if you like any of the recipes cooked here, you can check out the book, A Feast of Thrones. I'll link it down below, and you guys can check it out and buy it for yourself. The actual stew is on their website, so you'll have to find it through there. But the blueberry cream, the mulled wine, and the bread are all in the book, along with several recipes from different places throughout the story. So since we're going to be cooking in the stew, I don't want this bacon too cooked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this to the side, separate it from the grease, grab our pot, push our bacon into that pot. Now we got some bacon grease. Take our sausages. Let's let this cook a little bit. We'll throw this in with the bacon, and then we'll start cooking the vegetables. Grab my wooden cutting board. Start cutting up the vegetables. So you want to start with a couple cloves of garlic. I like buying it in the bulk so that you can break it apart as needed. Get your carrots. I think 2 carrots will suffice for this one. Maybe 3. These are a little short. Almost forgot to peel these things. Now it's important to peel large carrots like this just to make sure that any dirt or tough outer layer of carrot doesn't make it into your stew. But man, that sausage is already smelling pretty good. I wish I could eat one now, but don't want to spoil the fun. Plus, it's not cooked all the way through. Careful if you don't feel confident enough with shaving carrots. Don't go too fast or else you might cut your finger. I hate when I cut my finger when it comes to peeling. I do it all the time when I cut potatoes and peel potatoes. It drives me crazy. When it comes to the Game of Thrones or the Game of Feasts, you either win or you dine. There is no middle ground. I'm actually going to cut it a little faster. Let's stir that around a little bit. Once that's done, we'll throw it in the pot again. And then once we start adding the broth, we can throw in some boiler onions, which are tiny onions, and they taste delicious. I tried to focus mostly on things you would find in the north, considering it seems like this next season will be focusing more on Jon Snow and the events at Winterfell and the White Walkers arriving at the Wall. So I think it'd be good to serve up a nice hearty winter meal along with the Lord Commander's dessert of the blueberries and cream. Now we got to work on these garlics. Let's save time. Smack it. I just love smacking. Cut that down. You want to make sure to get every last bit of this garlic shell off. So all this will end and be ready to be served all at the same time for everyone to enjoy. Let's check on the sausages. Oh yeah, we got some nice dark marks on some of these. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you don't end up with a Sandor Clegane moment where half of it's burned and half of it's not. You want to make sure you got a nice even burn across the face. I'd say that's almost time to throw that in the pot. Okay, so these sausages are just about ready. These are looking nice and cooked. And they'll cook even more in the stew, just like I said before with the bacon. Move this over. Toss all those in there. Cut off a little piece of butter. Make sure to take off the skin. I'm going to take the knife, pile all this garlic up, and then push it onto the blade and drop it in. It smells beautifully. Let's take these carrots, pour those in there. Garlic and carrots, really good base for vegetables for a stew. Just make sure that all the carrots are covered in butter. Not really cook them right now, because next we're going to do is I'm going to grab myself some beef broth, pour in about a cup or just enough to cover and let that simmer a little bit. We're going to wait for these carrots to start to get tender in this broth. You could smell, if you had smell-o-vision, the future will come, folks. It will happen. But it's a butter and carrot mix of flavors and smells, and it's killing me. This is about ready. what I'll do is grab this pot, put it on the heat, pour that in there, add some more broth, about 2.5 to 3 more cups, add a little bit of dark beer, give it a nice sizzle into it. Got a little packet of boiler onions, or pearl onions as they're also known, and we'll just pour the package in there. We'll top it off with some barley or spent grain if you have it. This will act like, kind of like a rice. It'll have a wheatier taste to it, a little more wild flavor to it. You can see those pearl onions start to float. What's great about pearl onions is once this thing starts to boil, they'll start getting real soft and tender, and they'll just melt in your mouth. Add a little bit of seasoning, some thyme or savory if you have it. Just give it a couple shakes of thyme in there. Get some black pepper, crack some of that in there. It'll just make your house smell amazing. Because if it's not thick enough for you, is when you add the butter, you just toss in a little bit more flour, and that will actually thicken it as you add the fluids to it. It's time to start the wine. What I got is 2 bottles of Dornish Red. As we know, the Dornish make the best wines. And what we're going to do is I'm going to pour both of these on low heat. Get this starting to go. Here's where things get weird. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take myself a nice long knife. I'm going to get an orange. I'm going to pierce it and cut it. Now, I'm not going to juice these oranges. I'm going to cut them in half, and I'm going to grab a nice thing of whole cloves. I'm going to take the cloves. I'm going to stick them into the orange. Stick side in, and I'm going to do that for every slice of orange I have. I'm going to let that float in the wine. Get another orange, do the same thing. And this may seem like an unnecessary step, but what that does is it lets the orange flavoring fuse with the cloves and slowly get distributed into the wine. And because the oranges are naturally buoyant, they'll float instead of sink. And you're going to want at least 20 or so of these clove sticks. Now we got these in there. I got to start adding all the other ingredients. What you're going to want is you want to get some nutmeg. You're going to want about a tablespoon of this into your wine. Get yourself some ground cinnamon. Shake that in there as well. And what I have here is actually cinnamon sticks. Add one of these as well. For extra measure, you can break it. That'll also release the flavors in there. To add to that is more honey. We want about 3 tablespoons of honey. And then finally, we're going to finish this off with some lemon juice. Nice lemon halves. Get some lemon juice going in there. You know what? Just because I think it'll be real nice to add, and add some little bit of ground ginger. Just a little bit. And we're going to want this wine to simmer for about 45 minutes. And let that infuse flavors into it. That's going to come out real good. We got a lovely thing going here. It's almost time to start the bread. If you remember from my last video, it's time to go to the breading station. So here we are at the breading station again. It's time to make some bread. I'm going to try and see if I can mimic the Stark Wolf banner as best as I can. So I'll cut that right there. That's where the mouth will be. It's starting to look like a wolf. I'm going to try and see if I can make little fangs here. Start making an ear back here. Way of showing fur. Kind of looks like scales to me. So I can try and use the spoon. And, just kind of have fun with it. What we're missing is an ear. So what I'll do is I'll take this little disc right here. Hollow it out. Shape it in my hands. I believe we might have a wolf here somewhere. The wolf's there. You just got to find it. I'm even going to put a little nostril in there. So this is looking pretty good so far. I hope that the bread cooks evenly. And if you look at the Stark banner, the head is slightly, the head and neck slightly bend. So I'm going to see if I can try and move all my hair a little bit to make it look like a neck. We really want to make this bread wolf seem ferocious. We don't want a vegetarian wolf with soft teeth. And I think I have my best dark wolf I can probably make. Let's see if I can add a little bit more detail in this ear. And then you just want to scar it a little bit to make it look like hair. That way it also has ways to air out. That might be a wolf. Go over here, grab the rest of our dough, and now we can have just a normal loaf. Flatten this out. And this, we just want like a little lump. Make sure all the bread that I didn't use in the other one, once I slap this in the oven after about 25 to 30 minutes, we'll have nice black bread. And just like that, we got bread. Let's take these to the oven. Well, I hope you enjoyed. If you try out this recipe, be sure to tell me down in the comments below. And here's to another great season of Game of Thrones. If you have ideas for what you want to see me cook in the future, what shows you want me to cook for, then you know what to do. Like, comment, and subscribe for more. And once again, and as always, what's an outro?